Story 1. Option A, be bothered. Option B, don't be bothered. I don't know why anyone would choose A. That sounds exhausting. Story 2. Perhaps instead of questioning why many people are unbothered, reflect on why you are so bothered. Many of the things that trouble you may not be worth the mental effort you invest in them. Story 3. I have run out of concerns. I'm tired and genuinely don't have time to be bothered. If I let the issues around me affect me, I would be miserable. Part of it is conditioning and learning to be resilient. Have you been ignored by a potential partner? That happens all the time. Let's move on. Is work stressful? That's not my problem. I just work there. They can stress about it. I'll focus on my tasks and log off when I can. Is someone trying to provoke me? I have dealt with 2 severely abusive relationships. You need to do better than that. The list goes on. I simply don't care anymore. Of course, there are some things like family deaths and the loss of a pet that will hurt and I won't be able to just shrug off. But with the daily annoyances, I'm not interested. I'm here to enjoy my life. If you're trying to disrupt my peace, I'm walking away. Story 4. Bothered about what? If something bothers me and I can change it, I do. If I cannot change it, I accept it and do not dwell on it. If it is something potential that has not happened yet, I follow Bill Burr's advice. I will either be okay or I will not. If it turns out that I am not okay, then I can worry about it. There is no reason to worry now and then worry again when it actually happens. Story 5. It is easy to understand. Traditional gender roles often emphasize men as the strong, silent types, which can lead to a display of indifference even when they care deeply about something. Story 6. Seriously? I'm 56 years old. About 15 years ago, I watched an ant carve up a chocolate chip for over an hour, making it small enough to take back to its nest. I thought to myself then, that little ant had big problems, and it worked hard to make that problem small enough to get the job done. To me, that little chocolate chip was nothing. To it, that was a huge problem. And to it, whatever my problems are don't mean anything. Since then, I have viewed all of life's problems as that chocolate chip, and I see myself as a large ant with far more resources than that little ant. I have no problems worth worrying about that are bigger than that ant trying to get that chocolate chip home to feed its family. Moreover, I live in the country, miles from anywhere, and I enjoy just watching the wind. My wife cannot stand that I can think about the wind and nothing else. It is total peace. Story 7. We are not always unbothered. We simply do not show it. Sadness is viewed as weakness, and weakness is punished consistently. Story 8. For a man, a significant part of life is disappointment, so being bothered is not worth it. It is just another day. Story 9. What good is being upset going to do for the situation? I get cut off while driving, and I say quietly to myself, "What are you doing, moron?" and move on with my life. It's already over and no one got hurt. A few days ago, I sold my house, and the inspector and buyer came for the final inspection the day before we closed. That same night, after the inspection, we backed the moving truck into the gutter and completely smashed it. It was a huge problem, and it was my wife who was guiding me. I got out of the truck, looked at the gutter, and then grabbed a hammer to straighten it out. Being angry and reacting to situations only makes them worse. It either makes someone feel bad or ends with someone getting hurt, making remediation much harder. Story 10. Emotional expression. Some individuals, regardless of gender, are less expressive about their feelings. They may process emotions internally and appear more composed. Cultural norms. Societal expectations often encourage men to be stoic or hide their emotions, which can make them seem unbothered even if they are feeling something inside. Personality differences. People have different personalities and coping mechanisms. Some are naturally more laid back or less reactive to stress. Focus and priorities. Sometimes what seems like being unbothered is simply a difference in priorities or focus. What might be a big deal to one person may not hold the same significance for another. Story 11. The only reason to become upset over anything is if it will solve your problem. Since that never happens, it is never worth becoming upset over anything. Story 12. No one wants to hear about our problems, and the moment we start to vent, we come across as unreasonable. So why bother? Everything is fine just as everyone wants it to be. Story 13. Different coping mechanisms. People cope with stress and challenges differently. Some might appear unbothered because they have developed ways to manage their emotions internally or maintain a calm demeanor. Cultural expectations. Societal norms sometimes encourage men to suppress their emotions or appear stoic, which can come off as being unbothered even if they are feeling something inside. Personality traits. Individual differences in personality play a role. Some people are naturally more laid back or less reactive to external stressors. Emotional expression. It is also possible that they are just less expressive or more reserved about how they feel, which can be misinterpreted as indifference. Prioritization. Sometimes, people prioritize their energy and focus on what they find important, which might make them appear unbothered by things that do not align with their priorities. Story 14. There is an unlimited amount of distractions, but most of them detract from my goals. I have a vision for my life, and my goals are incremental milestones in realizing that vision. I also want to enjoy my journey along the way. I feel a determination to achieve what I care about most and understand that many things are completely out of my direct control. Therefore, I focus on the process of building the dream I have for myself. For me, it is mainly about healthy and rewarding relationships with the people I love. Story 15. We are generally encouraged to push through, carry on, focus on the objective, or walk it off. Essentially, we are trained to look past issues and remain unbothered. It was an eye-opener for me when I started working. The women often complained about various things, such as the use of light bulbs, temperature, available pens, and the fragrance of the soap in the bathroom. It never crossed my mind that these matters could be addressed if I asked. I rarely ask, but I have done so. Story 16:1. I can do something about it and decide I will. Why be bothered? I'm solving the issue. I can do something about it and decide not to. Why be bothered? I've chosen to let this continue. I can't do anything about it. Why be bothered by something I cannot control? In general, I'm not bothered because I have faced enough serious situations in life that the minor issues in day-to-day life just aren't a concern. I am generally confident in my ability to handle serious situations. The issue arises when there is a disparity in what qualifies as serious. I have served in the military, and I know what it's like to witness loss. I have experienced times when finding 32 cents meant 3 packs of ramen, which allowed me to eat for 3 more days. I am not going to be very bothered by who said what at the work party. I understand that it may be important to others, but my criteria for what constitutes an important problem differs from that of the next person, and theirs differs from the person after that. Story 17. Maybe that's the essence of masculine energy, to not worry about it. Or it could be a culmination of trauma to say it could be worse and move on. Story 18. Many of us are skilled at recognizing what is truly worth our attention, and it is often just a small percentage of the overall situation. Story 19. The only thing you can really control in life is your reaction to the world. Mastery over that is generally a good thing. Story 20. I don't know if you are a woman, but I dare say that men do get bothered just about different things. Story 21. Because they do not see the point of being bothered. It is a waste of energy, and everyone will judge regardless. Story 22. Not much to be upset about. I find it strange that some men are content with their lives, but discussing issues can make other people quite upset. Story 23. Decades of enduring repressive expectations have shaped my perspective. I was raised with the belief that my opinion did not matter, leading me to conform to others' expectations. Different forms of therapy have been beneficial, helping me connect with my emotions. Story 24. Most people run out of concern before they reach adulthood. Once you master the art of not caring, life becomes much more peaceful. Story 25. Sometimes it is easier to act as if I do not care than to be honest about how I feel. Letting it out tends to make people concerned about me or leads to consequences I prefer to avoid. Story 26. I am not bothered because most of what is out there does not directly affect me and is out of my control. For everything else, I am confident that my past life experience, current knowledge, skills, and tenacity will help me overcome anything. Story 27 comes with the territory. If I had an emotional reaction to everything that happens or goes wrong in my daily life, people would think I'm crazy. Most importantly, I can't be bothered to care anymore. Story 28. Every time I express my negative emotions, other than saying, "This is difficult, but I just work here," all of my friendships and relationships have ended. After years, it reaches a point where something bad can happen to someone I care about, such as being mistreated by a boss or betrayed by a friend, and I genuinely feel nothing. I immediately respond with, "All right, and what are we going to do about it?" In my mind, I hope I never become completely emotionless when something more serious occurs. I still struggle to hold back tears or anger when I visualize my family members being gone, so at least I am not that far removed from my emotions. Tyler Childers, Follow You to Virgie, and Struggle Jennings, Like Father Like Son, have served as effective tests for my emotional response. Story 29. A man being bothered by something is usually seen as negative, unless it is something chivalrous or professional, such as a woman being offended or the state of the economy. Many men also try to rationalize situations instead of responding with their emotions. Story 30. I care about things that truly matter. Everything else and everyone else can be dismissed. Story 31. Pretending not to be bothered because showing emotion is not something men are really allowed to do. Story 32. People use your being bothered against you. That's why it's best to either be unbothered or, if that's not possible, lie about being bothered by claiming we are unbothered. Story 33. For me, it's about perspective. The more experiences I have, the better I can keep things in perspective. A flat tire becomes an inconvenience instead of something that can ruin my day. After my wife died, my perspective shifted significantly. I made it through a severely traumatic life event without falling apart. It is difficult, and I miss her terribly, but oddly, it feels good knowing I made it through and that I can handle it. It's all about perspective. Story 34. Worrying about things outside of your control does not change the situation, regardless of how much you worry. Alternatively, you can choose not to worry. It's simple, and many prefer to keep it straightforward. Story 35. Because 99.99% of issues that people these days throw a fit over are simply not worth the fuss. Story 36. Worrying about things you have no control over or interest in is a complete waste of time and energy. Focus on what you can change and what matters to you, and let go of everything else. Story 37. Why would you consciously choose to stress over anything you can't control? That's not wise and unimportant. At some point, you'll be gone and those problems won't matter unless you hold a significant position. So, relax and live your life the way you want to. Story 38. Men value logic when addressing issues. Panic or worry has no place in a logic-based mindset. It is counterproductive. You make better decisions when you have carefully considered options and outcomes. From my experience, women tend to incorporate more emotional influences into their decision-making. This approach has its benefits but can also lead to worrying or excessive concern. Story 39. I don't know, some things just are not a big deal. Deal with it if you have to and move on. Sure, some things might be annoying or inconvenient for a moment, but if that is all, what is stressing over it going to do other than drive you crazy? Story 40. It's not that I'm unbothered. I am deeply concerned about multiple issues. I can't do anything about most of them. Story 41. Because when life has been challenging you for so long, the little bumps and knocks don't seem to matter very much. Story 42. I know where to invest my emotions, and that's in things that will deeply affect me. Besides that, I don't care about the unimportant matters. Life is too short to stress about things you can't control. Story 43. We are compelled to focus on trivial matters, leaving no energy for important issues. Story 44. I have been told that when I am bothered, I can be annoying or potentially showing signs of toxicity. I have heard this for a bit over 30 years now, although the language has become harsher in the last decade. As a result, I have missed almost every ship, boat, train, and bus to Jivafukistan, and quite honestly, I haven't bothered to figure out where it actually is. Story 45. Why would I care about something that does not affect me or that I cannot change? This is true for many things if you think about it. Story 46. Aging has given me a sense of perspective. When it comes to being bothered, I have started looking more closely at the situation. Is it something I can do anything about? Is it worth getting upset over? More often than not, the answers to one or both of those questions have been no. Story 47. The older I get, the more selective I become about what bothers me. Don't sweat the small stuff. Save your passion for what really matters. Story 48. People go through a lot on a regular basis to be affected by minor annoyances. Generally, we do not have the opportunity to use a pretty and cheerful persona to advance in life as some individuals can. I do not intend for this to be perceived as sexist, but it is a sad reality. Story 49. Unbothered? I don't know, that's probably why we can, for the most part, get along with each other seemingly much better than our female counterparts. As long as some guy doesn't come in acting like a total jerk, what's there to be bothered about? We are very tolerant of all kinds and ways of each other, except for probably arrogance. There's no reason to hate, right? Story 50. We're not as unbothered as we claim, but if we admit to being bothered, women may not want to spend time with us. Story 51. One thing that finally brought me peace mentally is that I cannot control anything other than myself. I control the words I use, my emotions, and my thoughts. I cannot control how other people react or behave. I cannot control most things in life. So I stopped trying, realized I could do what I can with what I have, and that made me much more unbothered. Story 52. They keep their feelings hidden because they are expected to perform regardless and are overlooked if they do not. Story 53. In every life, we have some trouble, but when you worry, you make it double. So don't worry. Be happy. Story 54. I simply do not care. I have made a conscious effort to keep the amount of stress in my life low. I see what it does to people, and I can clearly see that happening to me. Story 55. There is no reason to stress about things you cannot control. Believe it or not, there is not much we can control in our daily lives. Story 56. Ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen and how would it affect me? A lot of things stop being important then. Story 57. Because you just have to learn how to let things go when you are met with no as your usual answer. You learn to stop caring and just move on. Story 58. Because many of us understand that whatever may come, we can handle it. I know who my true friends are, and beyond that, the world can burn for all I care. It is what it is. Story 59. In what sense would something bother us? Yes, there are many challenges thrown our way, but it's nothing new. Over the last 15 to 20 years, many have adopted a be-like-water mentality. We roll with the punches and deal with situations as they arise. Let the frenzy unfold, and we will be here when it is over. Story 60. You cannot control the world, but you can control how you react to it. Caring requires energy. Why care about things that do not involve you or that you cannot control? Life is much easier with a bit of stoicism. This way, you can prioritize the things where you can actually make a difference. Story 61. I remember working a job that was soul-crushing. I was miserable. I walked into the office, and a coworker said, "There he is, the happiest man in the industry." I thought it was funny that I felt miserable while this guy thought I was the happiest one here. The point is that many of us are struggling but don't show it. Story 62. Not bothered could easily be replaced with not curious. It doesn't seem like there are many questions asked in many situations, including non-romantic ones. I attribute my deepening friendships and relationships to my curiosity. Would you agree? And what does unbothered mean to you? Story 63. I am doing my best. What is there to worry about? Besides that, worrying does not fix anything. All worry does is create undue stress, which leads to various health issues. I am doing my best. There is nothing more I can do. It is what it is. No worries. Story 64. I am always nervous about something in the back of my mind, but I do not show that I am upset. Acting upset is just a call for help, which I do not need since no one is going to assist me anyway. Story 65. Are we talking about being outwardly bothered, or what is going on in our heads? It also depends on what we may or may not be bothered about. Story 66. It comes down to the magnitude of emotional reaction, our choices of regulation strategies to combat that reaction, and our effectiveness at using those regulation strategies. Over time, our socialization trains us to have a lesser emotional reaction, choose regulation strategies that do not allow us to appear bothered, and gives us the practice to be more effective at those strategies. We are punished for being bothered and are therefore more motivated not to be bothered. We choose emotion regulation strategies like suppression, denial, acceptance, reappraisal, and distraction that allow us to not be bothered or appear that way. With more practice at these strategies, we become better at them and may have more confidence in using them. We may also have innate biological advantages in using these strategies more effectively or automatically. By doing this regularly, we find that everything works out even when we are not overly cautious, anxious, or bothered, which means we feel even less reason to be bothered the next time, resulting in a lesser magnitude of emotional reaction that needs to be regulated. Story 67. If there is no advantage to being bothered, why do it? Find something else to do instead. If being bothered led to positive outcomes, more men would engage with trivial matters that are outside their control and do not directly affect them or their loved ones. Story 68. Emotional detachment arises from prior negative experiences and personal reactions. The best approach is to not care as much to prevent similar actions from recurring. Story 69. In my experience, men are more focused on eliminating things that bother them, while women tend to seek solutions to these issues. For those to whom this applies, the underlying concern is that solutions require ongoing maintenance, which can be stressful. As a result, men often lead more minimalist lifestyles. They may be missing out on certain comforts, but they have fewer worries. This is where the stereotype of men's apartments containing only an air mattress and a TV originates. It serves as an exaggerated illustration of this phenomenon. Story 70. Because in their minds, there is a lot going on, and most of the time, nobody cares to know what it is, so many men learn to keep it to themselves. Story 71. I have mastered not caring about things that do not directly impact my life. Not my responsibility, not my concern. Story 72. It is detrimental to your mental health to be bothered by things you cannot control. If something will or will not happen regardless of your input, then why be stressed? For the things you can control, did you give it your honest best? If so and it does not work out, it was not meant to be anyway, and you have nothing to be ashamed of. The moment I stopped being constantly online and focused on myself and my family, instead of every little change in the world, I experienced better sleep, my mood improved significantly, and I began to enjoy my hobbies again. Story 73. Sometimes it is nice to just float, knowing that there is a finite number of things within your control. It does not mean you care any more or less than someone who anxiously considers things all moments of the day. Living like that is exhausting and not good for you or your loved ones. Then again, floating away too often is not beneficial either. Story 74. Largely because, aside from a few good fraternal groups and friends, no one really cares how we feel or what is bothering us. So why bother? Story 75. I am unbothered because my needs are met. I have a good job that pays well and treats me with respect, a wonderful wife whom I adore, and two amazing children who believe I can solve any problem. We have a comfortable home and a fridge and pantry full of food. As long as nothing threatens any of this, I am not concerned. I care about many other issues, but not to the extent that I let them disturb my peace or cause me emotional distress. Story 76. A student is screaming and throwing objects around the classroom, but not at other students. Other staff members are expressing concern, saying, "Oh my gosh, he is losing control." I ask, "Are you done yet, buddy?" It's because I'm too old to be overly concerned. I've gained a great deal of wisdom over the years. I understand what you're trying to achieve at this point. If you're attempting to provoke a reaction, it won't work in your favor. The consequence may not be immediate, but it will come when you are as calm as I have been. Story 77. Personally, I'm petty, and I realize that not caring means 9 out of 10 times you win against whoever wants you to care. The 1 out of 10 times is when they don't care if you care or not, so there's not much reason to do so anyway. Story 78. You learn to put on a brave face because at best nobody cares, and at worst you are either a danger for getting angry or weak for getting emotional. Story 79. Compartmentalization is a concept where problems at work remain at work, and issues in personal life stay in personal life. From my own experience, it takes a significant problem for me to be affected by it when I am in a different domain. For example, breaking up with someone can impact my work, or discovering that my program, which is crucial for timely release, has been behind schedule for weeks without anyone informing me can follow me home. Research suggests that men often reach a state of empty mind more easily than women and seem more comfortable focusing on only one thing, if they focus on anything at all. Therefore, unless they are concentrating on what is bothering them, they are less likely to be disturbed by it. Story 80. Typically, society tends to view emotional outbursts from men as a precursor to violent acts. Therefore, if we are bothered, we hide it. Story 81. I do get bothered if it affects me directly in my household. Beyond that, it's tough enough to keep my own life sane and functioning. I don't invest in others and things that are out of my control. Story 82. I am bothered by many things, but outwardly expressing it isn't going to help or be productive. It is better to push those feelings down and move on with my life. Story 83. I stopped caring about most things I cannot control a while ago. Why worry about things you have no control over, especially when many of them do not actually affect you? Story 84. Literally nothing I do matters. I'm replaceable at my job even though I'm good at it and work harder than most people. Both political parties do not care about my well-being. The economy has struggled due to multiple significant crashes and inflation throughout my life. Women have never given me the attention they gave my father, and I am likely never going to have my own family. Most of the friends I've had have abandoned me as well. So what's the point? I do not care about things I cannot control, so I'll just do the best I can. Story 85. I am often bothered by many things. However, I have learned that my reactions are frequently misunderstood and not always welcome. Essentially, expressing my frustrations has created more issues than simply concealing them. Story 86. Why be bothered by something that is a minor inconvenience? It takes too much energy and is unhealthy to stress yourself out for no reason. Story 87. There are only 3 things that bother me: homelessness, hospitalization, and incarceration. If I am avoiding those things successfully, I have nothing to be bothered by. Story 88. My oldest brother was old enough to be my father. He taught me that if it doesn't test your integrity, cost you a lot of money, or threaten anyone you love and care for, then it's probably not worth the emotional effort. That lesson has guided me throughout my adult life. Story 89. There are certain individuals who make a fuss as a way to create change. I am not one of those individuals. Story 90. Exposure therapy can involve confronting fears in a controlled environment. For example, if someone has a fear of the dark and rats, they might be placed in a situation where they encounter those fears directly. This could include being in a dark room with simulated or real rats for a set period of time, with the aim of reducing the fear response over time. Story 91. Getting bothered and upset raises my blood pressure while telling others they got to me. Frankly, I could care less about what most people have to say. Their reality is theirs. I don't have to buy into other people's craziness. Story 92. My friend and I were discussing it the other day, and basically there are only 3 outcomes to any situation. 1. It will work out. It will not work out. It will suddenly and violently no longer be my problem. Story 93. If you cannot change a situation, then why worry? If you can make a change, then again, why worry? Worrying will not alter the circumstances. Story 94. There is so much a person has to worry about. The smaller things that others have time for simply cannot fit onto the already overflowing plate of burdens. Story 95. Time is one of the most precious things we have as humans. This idea may initially seem disjointed. Investment. What do you invest your time in? Money? Health? Love? You can also invest time in hate and anger, neither of which is beneficial for your well-being. When you get angry, others can easily control you. All they have to do is say something to provoke you, and they can manipulate your emotions. Even if you decide to remove them from your life, another person will take their place. Why give them power over you? I would rather dedicate time to those I love than to those I do not care about. Story 96. When many people come to you to fix something that has gone wrong, you learn to appreciate moments of peace when you can find them. Story 97. Because, as a male, showing that you are bothered does not garner sympathy. Instead, it receives derision. Story 98. My mother taught us that if a crisis starts, we should not panic. Instead, we should take action if we can. If we cannot take action, then why are we panicking? Story 99. I try hard not to care about things I cannot control, like politics, influencers, news, and weather. Story 100. Busy handling the actual issues that bother us, so if that is good, all is good. Everything else is just noise. Story 101. The standard for what I consider a problem is excessively high. It means I can relax until I can't. Story 102. Some men feel bothered. What does that look like? At one end of the spectrum, you find road rage, domestic violence, and bullies. These are the types of men that no sane person wants to emulate. Additionally, men are often raised to seek solutions rather than dwell on their emotions. While this is not the healthiest approach to life, it results in men who appear unfazed by most situations. Story 103. Being constantly upset or outraged is not my hobby. There are those who seem to do this as a form of recreation. There are many terrible things happening in the world, and I cannot change that. I will not waste my time or energy on things outside my sphere of influence, as this will only lead to a state of constant mental torment. I have my hands full balancing life with my various mental health challenges. I simply do not have the time to worry about other matters. I have food in my stomach, a roof over my head, a bed to sleep in, a toilet, family to support me, and a job I enjoy. Many have less. Story 104. Cannot fix or do much about it. Let it go. Why be plagued by thoughts about things we do not control? To some, it means giving up. To others, it is letting go. It is all the same. Story 105. Honestly, I'm just tired. Tired of life. Tired of never feeling enough. Tired of my chronic illness. Tired of the games people play. I am just tired. Story 106. I pushed over a dead tree with a tractor today, just as I have done many other times. Fell in a way I didn't expect, almost hitting me. Here's the thing, it didn't. So who cares? If it had, I still wouldn't care because I would be dead. If you can boil everything down to that level of detail, everything becomes much easier. I'm still alive, so things must be all right. B. I am dead, so I no longer have to care. Story 107. Build your confidence genuinely, and you will know who you are. You can face adversity, so things do not bother you anymore. Story 108. I don't know if this counts, but I am a federal supervisor. I am the only male among 3 female supervisors. The 3 women are often wound up, criticizing others and getting mad about everything, while I focus on ensuring that the work gets done without getting involved in their drama. They have all asked me how I manage it. Story 109. Probably something to do with a lifetime of having their thoughts and feelings constantly dismissed, leading to a hollow shell of a person that lacks the ability to be affected by anything. Story 110. Most people's default setting is to react. If your milk spills and crying about it can refill your glass, then go ahead and shed tears. But if it won't, the important thing is to know when to act and when not to. You can always choose not to have an opinion. Story 111. It is likely a combination of societal expectations and upbringing. Men are often taught to suppress their emotions, leading to an apparent lack of concern. Additionally, it could just be a facade. Many individuals hide their worries beneath a layer of apathy. It is not difficult to understand. Story 112. If it is out of our control, there is nothing to be done except to deal with it. If it is someone else's decision and we do not suffer any consequences from that decision, then it is not our problem. Even if we do suffer some consequences, we should refer back to the first statement. Story 113. I used to be bothered. I always cared and was extremely affected when many bad things happened to me over a few years. I slowly became immune to it and taught myself not to show my emotions to others because people will try to find any reason to bring you down. It's not that I'm unbothered. I just don't care to show much emotion to anyone anymore. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Put it this way, I'm so bothered that I became unbothered. Story 114. Depends. Have you ever had a shotgun pointed at your head by a nervous police officer in a biker bar, screaming at you in a language you don't understand, when all you did was come to see the final show of your friend's band before they break up? That 1-inch round barrel looks about as big as a manhole cover. Most things in life become much less concerning after that. Story 115. I understand it as my black friend explained to me. You have to not let it bother you or you risk becoming one of the bad ones, regardless of how badly something was done to you. Story 116. I specifically remember when my luggage was stolen at a gas station. For some reason, I took it out to rearrange something in the car, forgot to put it back in, and drove off. 15 minutes later, I came back and it was gone. After it happened and we were continuing on with the trip, I remember my ex asking me why I didn't react very much. I think I didn't react much because, besides the mistake of leaving the bag out, I didn't have any control over the situation or what happened. I simply realized that that's what happened and let it go. I just wish I could have gotten my marathon event shirts back. Story 117. Do not get upset about things you cannot change. Focus your efforts on things you can influence. Being upset does not help in either situation. Stay calm, think, and act when necessary. Story 118. If you show emotion angrily, you are considered a toxic male. If you show emotion in any other way, you are labeled a sissy. This is how men are conditioned by women and older men. Story 119. Unlike women, when we sense drama nearby, we do not actively seek it out. We have neither the need nor the desire for it. Story 120. It has to be in our DNA because I have never been bothered. I was raised by a single mother and around almost entirely women. Story 121. Because it really doesn't matter unless you decide it matters. For trivial things that shouldn't matter, just don't let them affect you. Allow it to matter only for the things that are important to you. Story 122. If I am bothered about something, I have created a new problem that is now my responsibility to resolve. In the meantime, my being bothered affects other people, and they do not want to be around me until I have come up with a solution to my problem without needing anything from them. Story 123. Many men consistently receive the message that their feelings do not matter and are viewed as an unwelcome burden. What is punished and not rewarded will, over time, disappear. Story 124. Because life is hard and exhausting enough, adding the pressure of constant worries makes life feel unbearable. Story 125. It took almost 3 decades, but I have reached a point where I no longer get upset about things I cannot change. It is important to recognize what you can and cannot influence. By refraining from giving an emotional reaction to everything throughout my day that would have upset me in the past, I am better able to identify when something truly deserves a negative emotional response. When that occurs, I can think through it rationally and consider potential changes. Worry is a significant issue I try to avoid. Worrying serves no purpose other than to make you experience the negativity multiple times. The same applies to anger. I do not dwell on situations that made me angry because that means I have to feel anger when it occurred and then relive that anger every time I think about it. This mental buildup can create the illusion that the event happened multiple times when it actually occurred only once. I simply do not have time for this. Story 126. Nothing on the inside, nothing on the outside. Story 127. Being bothered by things clouds your judgment. It makes you less useful in situations that require action. Situations begin in a couple of different ways. Either a live situation develops that I am witnessing, or someone approaches me with a situation they are aware of. Let's discuss the second scenario and why I remain unbothered. When someone comes to me with an issue, the first step is to assess the actual severity of the situation. As suggested, some individuals are overly troubled by events, which leads to perceptions that may not align with reality. If I adopt their bother, I risk inheriting their false reality and making errors while trying to solve a situation that may not exist. Instead, I need to cushion their emotions during our conversation and listen specifically to what is being said, creating a mental image of the events that I will later need to verify. This approach may label me as cold if I don't react as if I'm reflecting their emotions back. So I engage with their narrative while mentally taking notes and remaining calm. That is why I do not become overly bothered, because it clouds judgment in situations that require action. Now, regarding the first scenario, I am directly witnessing the situation unfold. The level of concern I need to feel is directly proportional to my proximity to the event. If I am in danger, I must be concerned and move to safety. If other people are involved, my perspective shifts, and for some reason, the need to do what needs to be done completely overrides my personal concerns. There is a job to accomplish, and there is no time to look around for someone else. Do not overthink. See a need and fulfill it. You must be the solution. Being bothered will only cloud judgment and prevent you from taking action. Story 128. Be calm, my friend. Your life will be better. Most problems are trivial and not worth occupying your thoughts. Do your best in everything you do and enjoy your life. Minor issues do not affect me. I let them go because they are not important and do not contribute positively to my life. Story 129. If you're bothered, that's literally an open invitation to unnecessary drama. There is no shortage of people who take pleasure in bothering others, especially if they see that you care. Story 130. I can change it? Then why worry? Worrying is just borrowing grief from the future. I try to avoid that. Story 131. This question has put everyone in a relaxed mood. I am reading the comments and I must say they reflect a carefree attitude. Men are easily influenced when it comes to proving a point that puts them in a good light, and I appreciate this particular influence. Story 132. The perfect anthem for us. Story 133. I'm just too tired to care unless it's something that will physically affect me. In that case, I still do not care. Story 134. Explaining that I am bothered by something often leads to a lecture about why I shouldn't feel that way, why it isn't a problem, and that someone else has it worse. It is exhausting to be affected by issues, and it does not change anything. Story 135. Whether it is nature or nurture, men on average can compartmentalize more easily. There might be an issue that concerns us, but we are able to set it aside mentally and not dwell on it. Story 136. Because the alternative is exhausting and anxiety-provoking. Sometimes I worry I'm numb, but I prefer it to being full of anxiety. Story 137. I am content, not upset, but depressed. I am not happy, I just feel here, and one day I won't be. I don't see a point in getting upset when this is all temporary, just like the rest of my emotions. Story 138. This is Psychology 101. Male brains have an adept ability to compartmentalize. This is due to the many atrocities they have faced over the millennia, such as being hunted by predators, killing prey, and watching the life drain from their eyes. They have also experienced killing the enemy and surviving in dire situations. Feelings of danger or anxiety in these extreme circumstances are often suppressed by adrenaline and processed in the subconscious. This fuels further energy for the next event. I performed CPR on a rapidly dying man and felt nothing. Later, when something minor stressed me out, the only thing I could think of was the feeling of his ribs collapsing. It's not that we don't care, but rather that we are coded to care later without realizing it. Story 139. I cannot speak for others, but I live by a rule called 5 by 5. It means if the current issue is not going to be relevant in 5 years, do not spend more than 5 minutes worrying about it now. If that comes across as indifferent, Then perfect, because being bothered never solved anything. Story 140. Probably not the case for most unconcerned individuals, but my childhood trauma taught me to mentally disengage at the first sign of trouble. Story 141. I realized when I was 22 that women often feel vulnerable, and places where they feel safe are like islands. That was eye-opening for me. Story 142. I realized when I was 22 that women often feel vulnerable in some way, and the places where they feel safe are like islands. That was eye-opening for me. Story 143. Survivorship bias occurs when only the successful cases are considered, while those who struggle are overlooked. Many individuals who face difficulties may contemplate ending their lives, leaving behind those who are capable of coping. Men are often expected to be strong and resilient, with no alternative option available. Story 144. It seems that they are comfortable with society and what it offers them. These individuals are often tall, fit, Caucasian, and young, which reflects a patriarchal ideal. Story 145. I have a simple personal perspective. If I cannot change something, it is not for me to worry about. Only my reaction to it is something I can control. I consciously try to maintain emotional balance. What will be will be. I also try to counter that inherent nihilism with the motto, it doesn't have to be like this. Much of what we experience is a result of decades of degrading the social safety nets in our country. However, I cannot fix that. I will do what I can and leave the rest. While communicating, I believe it is important to recognize that others may not be entirely at fault either. To me, worrying about something I cannot change is unproductive, as it is not my fault. Story 146. I'm sorry for anyone who is new to loss. Can be quite challenging. I lost everything, and I truly mean everything. Then, when I was recovering well, I discovered what matters to me. Not to you, as we are not the same. An incident occurred that forced me to come to terms with this. In the end, it is just you. They cannot take away your smile. Story 147. Women give focused attention to each man they are with, even for a short time. They will cook, clean, tidy, listen, and offer their bodies. Men do not need to be concerned to receive this attention. In fact, the less concerned they are, the more attention they receive. Why would they need to be concerned? Try living the other way around and you will see. If you are receiving attention, help, enjoyment, and admiration from a man, why would you need to appear concerned? He will provide those things anyway. Story 148. Because we cannot read minds all the time, especially when the question is vague. I presume you are referring to people you know, so generalization does not help your case and only results in sarcasm like this. Story 149. What is in your control and what is not? Once you adopt this mindset, it frees up a lot of mental bandwidth. Story 150. If you want an actual answer and not just men being unbothered about being unbothered, the psychological model of the Big Five personality traits would classify what you are asking about under the trait of neuroticism. People with low neuroticism are more likely to be unbothered. It is not entirely clear how much you can change your personality traits, especially as an adult. Many people responding to this thread say they decided not to be bothered. However, that is not really what happened. They are simply low in neuroticism, so that decision reflects their natural state of being. If you are high in neuroticism, you cannot just decide not to be. It doesn't work that way, although some research suggests that you can reduce your neuroticism through hard work with a specialist. As for why men are specifically unbothered, women tend to have higher levels of neuroticism by default. Story 151. I think many of us no longer have the energy to care about things. We just want to do our jobs, take care of those close to us, and find peace. Story 152. I feel like this is a general male characteristic. Growing up, you are often told that there are things you cannot control and should not concern yourself with because some things are beyond your control. Story 153. A lot of the time I am bothered, but I stay composed because stressing and panicking do not solve problems. Story 154. I have very high anxiety, but I find that my wife's anxiety is higher, and it oddly sets me at ease because I have to be strong for her. I think I am a bit of a contrarian, so when she says, "This is stressful," I think, Not too bad. I have definitely had worse. Nothing is that bad when I have my best friend by my side. Story 155. After 41 years of dealing with life, nothing surprises me, so why be bothered? It is going to be what it is going to be. Story 156. Being emotional doesn't get anything done. We may be bothered, but we can still grasp the bigger picture regardless of our feelings. Story 157. Already breaking Rule 4 of this subreddit. I see. At least you received some quick karma, right? Original poster? Story 158. When I am outwardly bothered, we receive criticism from both men and women, as society expects it of us. If we do not comply, we face significant backlash. I am a special needs teacher, one of 3 men in my school district who shares this position. For me, there is an expectation to be constantly stoic, helpful, and patient. I am not allowed to have a bad day and am expected to support everyone else when they are struggling. I used to go along with this expectation, but I am a sensitive person. I am autistic, experience chronic suicidal thoughts, and live with chronic pain. After a few years, I decided enough was enough. It took time, but my coworkers allowed me to be who I truly am, rather than a facade of a tough exterior. I appreciate my coworkers deeply, and I feel fortunate that they have finally accepted me as a genuine human being rather than just a man. A few of them still tease me, but it is not a big deal. They are unhappy individuals who spread their pain everywhere, which makes them bullies. Many of us are expected to be the support system for those around us. If we allow our pain to surface and cause chaos, it impacts those who depend on us, leading to chronic guilt and feelings of failure. Sometimes it seems easier to pretend to be okay than to feel like we have disappointed those we care about. I believe this also applies to many women, but I can only speak as someone who was born and identifies as male. I don't know, just like the gendered expectations placed on women, men face their own as well. They are not the same, and I would never claim that. Working primarily with women has greatly opened my eyes to things I was either completely unaware of or had accepted about myself, whether inadvertently or carelessly. In our conservative culture, everyone is expected to play their role and remain silent about it, and men in particular are expected to be unbothered. That is my perspective. I hope it was helpful. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.